there, I'm Liberlita, and today we're talking about chapters 10 and 11 of Wind and Truth. I apologize for any background noise you hear, it's just way too hot to keep the door closed. This video will contain spoilers for every Cosmere book and the preview chapters that have already been released, so if you don't want spoilers then click off now. Sam won't be joining me today, so I'll be doing this solo. None of these chapters have Zeth, so I am extremely sad, but we have some stuff to talk about. The epigraph for chapter 10 says that the second deciding moment after Kaladin listened to the wind was when Zeth had already decided to take upon his quest to cleanse Shinovar. This decision would shape all of their futures. The chapter proper starts with Syl and Kaladin going to a library, but Kaladin doesn't know the word for it. Syl goes up to a woman who she knows, shows off her very tall pack human. The woman, the head librarian, gives in to Syl's request. The head librarian returns with a book that can teach her how to read. The woman asks if she's planning on teaching Kaladin how to read. Syl asks if that would be a problem since Dalinar learned how to read, but the librarian explains that's different because Dalinar is holy. The book that Syl is given turns out to be Wei King, which sounds like a terrible book to learn how to read from. Don't they have any copies of like Dick and Jane or something? Also, a few weeks ago when it was revealed that Kaladin was going to be heir to Yurthiru, I had thought that he would be reading Way of Kings. So I was right, and it feels like it's coming full circle narratively. Syl sees another woman who is in some new trendy fashion. She oos at it, and I am Syl. Every time I see new fashion, I get excited. Syl changes her clothes to be similar to the woman's, and the woman suggests wearing leggings or trousers because she can fly, and she doesn't want to show parts. Which, a couple things, putting leggings in the setting feels very odd. I get that they're probably not the leggings that we have on Earth, but I feel like there's a better, less modern term for that. I don't think Brandon has fashion experts, historical fashion or otherwise, but I think he really needs one. It's a bit distracting. Syl then makes a joke that she thinks down there is actually a chol, and I've said this before, I am a massive fan of Brandon's humor, but this sequence didn't land for me. I don't know if just the standard has been raised so high with Zeth that nothing compares, or I'm just too tired to enjoy the joke. It just wasn't making me laugh. And also, the image of putting grass near your lady bits is pretty gross and uncomfortable. Syl then puts a bunch of effort to write a single letter, because it's hard for her to physically hold things, and is happy, but the librarian cuts her down. Kaladin then calls her out for being a bully. I'm guessing this conversation will affect her in some way, and she'll perform a small but vital act that'll help with the plot. It is the Sanderson way. They then leave together. Also, this chapter was weird because it's feeding the Isilladin shippers, and I'm not pleased with that. It's a really weird ship, and I don't like it. On to chapter 11. Chapter 11's epigraph says that while the contest of champions was set into motion for a while, a different contest. The wind swore that both contests were equally valuable, but perhaps Shinovar's contest was even more important. That's quite interesting and makes me excited to see what's going on in Shinovar. Radiant unfortunately didn't kill Beatty, and he makes the comment, "You have learned substination? I thought your kind had forbidden that skill. Odium will need to know." It seems like Shallan is doing a lot of things that are super forbidden, at least at one point at a time, and I'm interested to see the side effects of this, and hopefully she doesn't accidentally nuke Roshar. Also, since Abidi has some attention on him and, a name, I wonder if he'll get an interlude chapter from his POV, and maybe will be where we see Todium. Abidi dives into the beaded wall, and the cavern collapses on Shallan. Then somehow Aelin's voice speaks in Shallan's mind. When Shallan begins manipulating the beads, they seem more alive and eager to help. Text says she never felt such a sensation from the bead before, and what was the voice that had led her to Aelin? Is this the wind? I thought it could have been Baido Mishram at first, but we'll see that later that she's not very happy. Shallan panics that Aelin is just an illusion, but gets a grip on reality. I think this is a setup. If the Chana theory is correct, then Shallan will probably see her mother and immediately think she's an illusion. But it wouldn't be because she's still alive. Also, Zeth's gotten a lot of flack and weird looks for hearing voices, but Kaladin, Shallan, and probably baby Yasna are also hearing voices, and they're not getting in this stink eye. Discrimination. Well, I guess if it's baby Yasna. Baido Mishram's face forms in the beads and talks about how she's gonna kill Shallan, burn everything that she loves, exact her vengeance in the river of blood. She'll rampage across Roshar until every human is dead. They're betrayers, they're thieves, they're monsters. She'll send them back to the flames from whence they came. But she's cut off when Aelin smashes her face in. So she's definitely not the wind. The book has made that loud and clear. I hear them. Kelsey, are you sure you want to be messing with this? Though I wonder if this might be a trick, like how Ruin was manipulating preservation's attempts to communicate with people in Mistborn. I don't think this theory is likely because I can completely believe that Bino Misham is just big mad because she was trapped in a gem for a few thousand years, but I'm just gonna throw that out there, just in case I'm correct. Shallan floats them to the surface and has made a note of two major conveniences when manipulating the beads, so I guess we'll see what that's all about. Could it be the wind's influence? Maybe cultivation is the voice she's hearing? I don't know. Either way, Abidi sees them and goes in for the attack. Shallan tries to manifest Radiant, but it's too draining on her at the moment. Abidi goes after a Windrunner, but Aelin fights him off and forces him to retreat. Soon, Radiant forms next to Shallan, summons a shard bow, and lets loose arrows thick as spears, making the fuse scatter. The text says Drehes and his squires regroup on the platform in a defensive formation around the fallen comrade. Spears up. Last week, we, unsurprisingly, got pushback on the section about Aelin's decision to bring Galliant, rather than Shallan's agents. Last week, I had said that if they were there, they could have held the platform, and the Windrunners could have had a better defensive position. This is exactly the strategy that I was thinking about. Sam's quite worried that the narrative doesn't see Adolin as being wrong, but I'm still holding out hope until Azamir. If he gets nothing for this poor tactical decision, then I'll admit defeat, and it'll be a massive mark against Brandon, because I still think that bringing Galliant is a massive bad decision. That is just a small thing compared to, like, Shallan almost dying. I feel like it'll be a massive blunder on Brandon's part, but we'll see what happens. Shallan moves the team through the Sea of Beads, and it reminds me of Avatar: The Last Airbender, when Katara and Aang would bend water to allow them to travel at the bottom of bodies of water. They're trying to get to Azamir, and Dre thinks they're going the right way because of their device. The sibling explained that it points to the Grand Canal, a canal being a bell that rings solemnly for a death or a funeral. It is the source of the capital C current, the death of a god. The current reminds me of the origin of the storms, but I don't think they're heading in that direction. It seems like the resting ground of a dead god would likely be referring to honor, but maybe it could be ad nauseam and point to Yolm. I don't think it's likely pointing towards Domitian dominion or ambition, but you never know. Adolin asks about Galliant, and they find the horse on the island. The text remarks that Galliant seemed used to flying in ghostly herds, to which I assume that means he secretly flies at night like Kaladin or Vin. One music friend lets Adolin pet it, and it seems familiar to him, at least the eyes do. The party discovers what the lights that Shallan saw in the previous chapters. It turns out they're a bunch of ships. It wasn't just a random patrol, but the Fuse were guarding it. It hurts my Mimi traitor theory, so that's sad, but it looks like the ships are heading to Azamir. And that's about it. These weren't my favorite chapters, mostly because of the lack of Zeth and some of the weird jokes. I still think Adolin will suffer some consequences for bringing Galliant, but hey, I could be wrong. I often say that 90% of the time I'm at least technically correct, and there is that 10% time where I'm just flat out wrong. But for right now, that's all I have for you today. Remember, there's always another secret.